Part 101. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1004. After listening to Zibala's words, Jia Yan was stunned. Jia Yan knew that this concept ship had great technology before, but he never thought that Zibala would actually say that the entire genius battlefield might not have the technology to repair it. No, then my battleship can only be used in this way. This will have a great impact on my combat power. Jia Yan lowered his head and pondered. Then he raised his head and looked at Ziba sincerely. Ziba, you have also seen that my current strength is only at the venerable level. Without this concept ship, my safety will be a big problem. The North Regiment might still be chasing me now. Please be careful. Think about it, even if it is a temporary repair, see if there is any way to repair this concept ship. Well, let's do this. I'll go back to Shili headquarters and look at my grandfather's manuscripts. Maybe I can gain something. After thinking for a long time, Zibala could only say this. Well, there is no other way. Jia Yan shook his head helplessly. The two agreed on their contact information, and then Zibala left the workshop planet together with a half-star existence. Jia Yan found a star hotel to stay in. While waiting for the news, he also took a look at the charm of the Lakiao Force workshop. After all, even if Zibala said that although only his grandfather could repair the concept ship, Jia Yan still wanted to try his luck to see if there were any other technological geniuses who could research and repair the concept ship. The charm of the Lakiao Force is that almost all of them are technological geniuses, and there are also many tourists, most of whom come to pick out technological items that enhance their combat power. However, technological things are often not only related to combat effectiveness. Hey, this thing can actually form a subspace simulation domain, which is of great research value. Jia Yan saw a large subspace simulator being sold in a workshop. Although the simulator did not have much effect on ordinary creatures, Jia Yan was different. He was a space genius. The subspace field has also reached an extremely profound state, so it is a bit exciting at this time. Well, the price is not cheap. It actually costs 20,000 yuan. Jia Yan looked at the price and realized why no one bought this thing. Originally, this kind of thing wouldn't have much effect on the existence of non-space talents. If the price were higher, no one would care about it. Purchase. After thinking about it for a while, Jia Yan finally gritted his teeth and bought it. Because he knows that similar things, in this Liqiao Force, will probably be orphans. If a strong scientific researcher wants to make one, he will never touch this piece of technology again, so many scientific research items become orphan items. No one knows how many similar things there are, but actually meeting the right person can often be of great help. You want to buy the simulator? Okay, 20,000 yuan. The workshop was a small one, and there were only 3 monsters working inside. After hearing Jia Yan look at the subspace simulator in the window outside, the seller looked at Jia Yan, who had turned into a metal monster, in surprise, and then nodded head. After paying the money, Jia Yan heard the monster behind him chuckle and say to the other 2 monsters, "The simulator that has been in our workshop for more than 150 years is sold. I have some spare money for drinks recently." Jia Yan shook his head. Anyway, he thought it was worth it. Returning to his temporary residence, Jia Yan moved the large simulator into his room. This tall simulator was just a circle larger than Jia Yan's real body. After reading the instruction e-book, his real body jumped out of the concept ship, and then his mosquito body entered the subspace simulator. When Jia Yan jumped into the simulator, a distortion appeared on the entire surface of the spherical simulator. Jia Yan felt this artistic conception while continuing to squeeze into it. Arriving at the center of the simulator, Jia Yan felt the distortion of the surrounding space. Compared with the real subspace, it was still a little less interesting. But for me, this feeling is more pure, and it is even beneficial to understanding the basic structure of subspace. In the real subspace, Jia Yan needs to pay attention to safety issues at all times, but in this twisted simulator, there is no need to pay attention to safety issues at all. When Jia Yan comes to the simulator, he can have a deeper understanding of his surroundings. I see, that's the principle of pure subspace. In this simple simulator, Jia Yan felt the purer principles of subspace. In this realization, he vaguely felt that his spatial talent was growing slightly every moment. Although it is not much every moment, it is extremely terrifying when accumulated. Puff. Unfortunately, the good times did not last long. After all, it was the work of a non-famous artist. When Jia Yan used the simulator for just 10 days, the entire simulator broke apart when Jia Yan entered it and gained insights. The front foot landed in a large piece of debris, and the surrounding parts fell to the ground. Well, it can be considered a big harvest. 20,000 genius yuan was not wasted. Jia Yan looked at the fragments of the simulator with regret. Originally, this machine still had a long life, but after Jia Yan entered it, he destroyed the space structure inside by using his insights. This is like a vehicle that is constantly speeding up. It's running under load, and if it breaks down now, you can't blame the workshop that sells it. And after 10 days, he gained a lot, especially in terms of space understanding. Jia Yan felt that if he used his space talent to fight against others, the combat power exerted by space might be twice as strong as before. Above. Very good. In this case, even if the concept ship is not repaired, my improved space strength can make me wearing the concept ship barely reach the level of a medium-talented half-star peak creature. Even against a high-end half-talented creature astral level, everyone has a certain degree of escape. There is a gain in space, which makes Jia Yan more confident in self-protection. The 20,000 talent yuan is definitely worth it. Next, while Jia Yan continued to wait for news about Zibala, he also visited various workshops. He even transferred several workshop stars and saw many technological things that he had never thought of before. For example, a machine that eats and pulls itself can maintain energy balance for tens of thousands of years. There are also dolls that can dance for 1,000 years by using sunlight, and so on. But Jia Yan has no interest in this kind of thing. About half a month later, Jia Yan still didn't gain anything. Of course, items that could help a strong person improve couldn't be found so easily. But when Jia Yan lost interest in the Li Jiao forces, and 11 Bala became impatient and wanted to tell her to leave. Communication. Jia Yan suddenly received a communication while watching a workshop. I looked at the label and found that it was from Ziba. Has her investigation yielded any results? Jia Yan felt happy and then picked up the communication. But to Jia Yan's surprise, as soon as the other party's avatar was displayed, Zibala shouted in a tearful voice. Master Jia Yan, run away. Someone is going to catch you. As soon as he finished speaking, the other party's communication was cut off. Looking at the darkened communication panel, Jia Yan was startled. After that, he suddenly felt that in a cracked space outside the workshop planet where he was, there was a terrifying creature slowly stepping out of the space. If this situation was normal, it would be extremely ordinary, but now, it shocked Jia Yan. The monster that appeared had not fully appeared in the starry sky. A domineering brainwave power spread out directly, and a strength belonging to a highly talented semi-star strongman rippled out, causing the disturbed stars below to all the creatures dare to be angry but dare not speak out. No, run away. Jia Yan felt this power and instantly felt a sense of crisis, causing him to take action instantly. He was in a certain workshop in the star, and he directly activated the power of brain waves, trying to tear the space in front of him. In front of me, you still want to escape into the subspace. The moment Jia Yan tore open the subspace, he was shocked to feel a voice appear behind him. It turned out that behind him, the semi-stellar genius who had just opened the space above the star had already arrived behind Jia Yan at some point. Although he had not yet fully appeared in the real space, a pair of green eyes emitting brilliant light, Jia Yan has been locked in for a long time. At the same time, Jia Yan felt that the subspace crack he had opened was slowly closing himself, trying to prevent him from leaving. What a terrifying space power! Jia Yan immediately felt that the other party was a being with space talent, and his identity was a high-level talent with a half-star level, and he was even a creature with extremely strong subspace abilities. In the case of unequal strength, next, restraining Jia Yan is just right. Puff. Even if you are shocked, but Jia Yan did not lose the confidence to escape. He raised the front paws of the metal crow that was transformed into the concept ship, blasted it backwards into the space, and grabbed it hard. Then the opponent snorted coldly, and was about to use the subspace talent to completely grasp the captured claw, but what he didn't expect was that a small pebble actually spurted out of the claw. Space stone? Not good. The other party was surprised when he saw the space stone, but he felt that the whole space stone was in a state of bursting, and he was suddenly shocked. But at such a close distance, it was too late for him to close the space. The space stone in Jia Yan's claws used huge force to throw it into the space that the opponent wanted to jump out of. Boom! A sound resounded throughout the world, and a heart-shaking regret arose in this workshop. Asshole! The voice of the space monster almost sounded like it was in a distant place. It must have been blasted very far into the subspace by the explosion of the space stone. But the other party is also a subspace creature, and he is also a high-end half-star talent. Jia Yan can't expect the damage caused by the explosion of the space stone. Escape. But with this time, it was enough for him to escape. Tearing open the subspace, Jia Yan enters it. Please remember the first domain name of this book. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1005. Boy, after a long journey, you just escaped into the subspace. You are looking for death. When Jia Yan entered the subspace, the semi-stellar space monster that was bombarded extremely far away by Jia Yan's space stone actually reached Jia Yan's side in an instant. Snort. Jia Yan didn't answer, just snorted coldly. The results of previous training in the simulator are now revealed. Puff. In the extremely twisted subspace, a jet-like projection suddenly accelerated to a level similar to that of the half-star level in that space. What? You are a sub-level, and your speed in subspace is almost the same as mine. The highly talented semi-star level being at the back almost stared, and then his voice turned gloomy. I see, you are using some kind of special energy. Why are you so fast? The energy may be limited. Let's see how long you can escape. The other party is worthy of being a high-level talented half-star, and his attainments in subspace seem to be higher than Jia Yan. At this time, Jia Yan used the maximum energy of the concept ship to escape, and he instantly judged that Jia Yan was hidden. It uses a special energy. Even if it doesn't hit, it's not far off. Jia Yan's concept ship doesn't have much energy. He has been using subspace as his warehouse. Now a mountain of energy material is nearby, but Jia Yan doesn't dare to approach it. After all, the other party has noticed his purpose. It's impossible to succeed. This is the second time he has encountered a being with the same subspace talent as him. The last time was in the Northern Star territory. Jia Yan spent a lot of effort to kill the opponent. But this encounter might be worse than the last time. Be difficult and dangerous. If Jia Yan had not passed the simulator before and gained a more powerful spatial understanding, he might have been easily caught by the opponent now. Senior, I'm just visiting and shopping in your workshop. I don't know why you want to arrest me. As Jia Yan flew, he made a questioning sound to the monster behind him. You must know that although he vaguely understood that the other party was 11 Bala's situation, he still wanted to understand what was going on. It was easy for Jia Yan to guess the identity of the other party as a member of the Lakiao force, because when the other party arrived before, the angry defense fortifications on the entire planet had not been activated, so the identity of the other party was ready to be revealed. As expected, this half-star powerhouse did not defend his identity. Huh, are you here to go shopping? Boy, I understand what happened between you and Zibala. Now that you know what's going on, just take off the equipment you are wearing. The belongings of my ancestors from the Li Qiao faction will naturally be taken away. Just return my Li Qiao power. After hearing this sentence, Jia Yan's mind suddenly changed, and he quickly understood the identity of the other party. In fact, it is not difficult to guess that if the other party admits that he is a Lakiao force, then his identity is equivalent to admitting it. As long as the entire Lakiao force takes a little effort to understand, they will know that there is only one half-star level talent. That is Ziba's father, the leader of the Li Qiao forces, Sith. Lord Sith, I am a good friend of your powerful force, Sibala. If you really want the concept ship I am wearing, I will leave it to you. Please don't make a big move. Jia Yan said something with the power of his brain waves towards the back. When he really had no choice, he was unwilling to fight Zibala's father, not only because he was familiar with the other party, but also because Zibala was his only hope of repairing the concept ship now. Of course, if the other party really wants his concept ship, that is impossible. Okay, if you stop, I won't chase you. The other party stopped. Jia Yangguang's eyes flashed and he also stopped. The two are separated by a full 100 kilometers in the subspace. This distance is not close in the subspace. After all, it is not easy to move in the subspace. At this distance, even if the opponent wants to continue chasing, Jia Yan still has enough time to show his escape speed. I don't know, Sir Sith, how do you want my concept ship? I bought this concept ship with real money and genius dollars, and I also poured a lot of emotion into it. If you want me to give it to you for free, then I will. Even if MOK risks his life, he will fight you to the death. Is it called a concept ship? That guy from Zibala refused to tell me the detailed information. He actually wanted to escape my eyes and go to the ancestral spirit hall to check the documents. Okay, boy, tell me what kind of price you want me to pay. Cost. The other party's expression was slightly cold. But what he said made Jia Yan feel slightly relieved, because he still thought that Zibala betrayed him, but now it seems that this is not the case. Senior, it stands to reason that if I get this piece of equipment, it belongs to me. Your idea of taking it back is just like a robber, Jia Yan said slowly. Then before the other party's expression changed, he continued, but I also know the significance of it to your family through Zibala's words. It's okay for me to bring it out, but I have a request, that is, if you can give me similar equipment, then this deal can go ahead. Jia Yan's mind was spinning rapidly. Before he said this, he refused to hand over this concept ship life or death, but at the same time as he said this, a thought suddenly flashed in his mind. That is the ancestor of the other party. Since he can make such a thing as a concept ship, there may be something similar. After all, such a concept ship cannot be built overnight, just like the simulator he bought before. If he works casually, there can be no stability, and the concept ship is very mature in every aspect. Even the most powerful scientist is destined to have a prototype. Huh? Do you want me to exchange it for something similar? The half-star strong man's eyes suddenly froze. Of course, this strong man is indeed Ziba's father. In fact, he had discovered Zibala's abnormal behavior before, and he had discovered it unintentionally. As the leader of the Lakiao force, he was also very talented in science, but his cultivation talent was also a high-level talent, so he was destined to only be strong in cultivation. This is the need of the power to continue on the path of becoming a leader. Therefore, he is very concerned about his daughter's scientific talent. After all, it is his daughter who will inherit the family business. But a few days ago, he discovered that his daughter, who was not very interested in science, actually stopped working on something ridiculous like the Jiayan Sama detector. Instead, after buying raw materials from a trip, I was so interested that I went to the ancestral spiritual museum, known as the family library, to check out the scientific information on my ancestors. However, he should have been very happy, but he found something strange about his daughter. Because she had forgotten about Cecila's father, Sibylla's grandfather, several times, and even mentioned the best work that disappeared that year. His daughter is almost a person without integrity. He understands that her daughter must have some secrets. Of course, he is more afraid that her daughter will be deceived. So he investigated and followed all the way, and finally discovered that his daughter actually had a friend who accidentally bought his father's best works. Is this okay? How could his family's ancestral items be casually leaked to the outside world? More importantly, if the most outstanding work was investigated and studied by high-end scientists from the Lakiao Force, the Lakiao Force might even appear because of it. More powerful technological combat items. Therefore, under coercion and inducement, he learned Jia Yan's communication number through Zibala, and then locked it with the signal from the Lakiao forces and rushed to where Jia Yan was. It sounds complicated, but in fact it is not accidental, because Zibala was not a reliable existence from the beginning. Cecilia pondered for a moment. Before he came over, he did not take action without thinking. After all, his daughter's face had to be given, but the other party wanted to escape from the beginning, and then a space stone explosion bomb came over. If he hadn't been there in the first place, because the space talent exists, maybe everyone will be injured when the space stone explodes. That's why he was a little angry with Jia Yan and chased him all the way. It's okay to give him some benefits, but it's too much to say that we should give him equal benefits. After all, among all the ancestors, only my father has such advanced science and technology. His best works cannot be given to anyone equally. Unless. Give him that secondary battle armor? No. This item now seems to be a trial piece of the battleship he is wearing, but it is terrifyingly powerful when worn. It is a treasure of our clan. When Sisla was pondering, Jia Yan was also looking at him. The other party is destined to refuse to exchange with me, but the damage to the concept ship is too much. If it is not repaired, it will break down in a few months at most. He is willing to provide me with something that I can use, even if it is not very well. The only option is to trade with the other party. Jia Yan thought with a long sigh. The concept ship only has a lifespan of a few months. Jia Yan understands it, but even so, he really didn't want to hand it over to Shiyuan before, because for him, it is a very suitable combat treasure. But if we don't exchange now, the other party will definitely not give up with him. In this case, I will exchange it for you with one of my tribe's treasures. After thinking for a long time, Cecilia finally thought of something. What he was thinking of was a weapon similar to half-loaded energy. When equipped, this kind of weapon can increase the combat power of a strong person by half. Of course, in actual combat, it is almost useless, because the protective ability is too weak, and the enemy damage will occur if hit. You just said that your name is, Moke, right? Since you are my Zeba's friend, then I will. Cecilia was about to say that he would exchange the energy-loaded weapon with Jia Yan, but his expression suddenly froze. You, tell me again, what is your name? He looked at the metal monster in front of him with some shock. The opponent's second-level strongman controlled his strength, but he looked unafraid in front of him, a highly talented and semi-star strongman. Senior, my name is Mok. Jia Yan didn't know what the other person meant, so he continued to say his pseudonym. Zibala knew his real name, but now it seems that Zibala did not tell his father. Are you MOK? The MOK who turned the dark territory upside down. Please remember the first domain name of this book. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1006. Sisla looked at Jia Yan's figure with extremely shocked eyes, and then he felt a sense of creepiness in his eyes. You must know that although the rumors of MOK have not spread to the ears of the general public, many people like him, the leader of the power, already know about it. A mere second-level powerhouse can almost destroy a dark area force. Even now, the disciples are trapped in a permanent battle. Cecilia looked around with some fear, as if she wanted to see if there was a black hole in the space that Jia Yan could detonate this time. With his talent in space, he certainly understood how the black hole that Jia Yan detonated that day was transported to the disciples, but the more he did, the more shocked he was by Jia Yan's terror. It turns out to be this madman. I can't offend him too much from the Li Chiao forces. Legend has it that he also has a secondary partner, whose strength is no less than a half-star of medium strength. According to the legend, if I fight with him, what will happen? Oops, I can't capture him here, and the Li Chiao forces will be caught up in the revenge of him and his partner. What's even more terrifying is that if he has the ability to create another black hole and explode it on the main star of Li Chiao. Thinking of this, Sisi's whole body was shocked, and he looked around nervously, as if he was afraid that Moke, the legendary lunatic, would create a black hole here because of his pursuit, and follow him perish together. Jia Yan wanted to give in, but he was stunned when he saw the other parties move, and then thought of Sith's words that shocked him about his Moke status before, and he guessed almost instantly. So, he was frightened by the way I acted under the false identity of MOK. Jia Yan was overjoyed, and then completely gave up his excuse for submission. Your Excellency Sith, didn't you say that you want to exchange a certain treasure with me? Let's talk about it now. A flash of strangeness flashed in Jia Yan's eyes, and then he actually did not retreat, but flew forward a little distance. Of course, the distance is not much at all, only 1 or 2 meters at most, but the representative meaning of this move is different. At least it expresses Jia Yan's mentality of not being afraid of the opponent. This. Even though Sisla vaguely guessed that Jia Yan was pretending to be powerful, he didn't dare to look down upon him. You must know that this is the madman MOK who is rumored by the leaders of several major forces around him. This kind of madman is very powerful and has many methods. According to the rumored strength, Sisla is not very sure whether he can capture Jia Yan, and may even cause endless harm to the Li Chiao forces. Daughter, oh daughter, how did you give us such power as this guy? Alas, Sithla was in trouble. Let's do this, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I will exchange my father's second work with you as you said, and that's all. Cecilia thought for a long time, and finally shook her head helplessly and sighed. Huh? Thank you very much. How about this? If it is not convenient for me to show up, you can take the work to the previous star. I will send a friend to pick it up in a few days and give you this concept ship at the same time. Jia Yanfu's eyes sparkled, and he said with some joy. This, okay. Sisla was almost furious. Then he stopped talking to Jia Yan and flew directly to where he came from with almost humiliation. Ha ha ha. In this space, only Jia Yan's resounding triumphant laughter was left. I'm afraid that a highly talented and semi-star existence, who can still suppress Jia Yan's space talent, is so happy that Jia Yan is a little addicted to it. Ahem, now my strength is not as strong as that of the disciple group back then, so I have to keep a low profile, Jia Yan suppressed his smile, but he couldn't hide his pride. If these semi-star experts knew that he, Jia Yan, was just a venerable person, a group of powerful people might want to jump off the building. Being scared like this by a venerable person would be a shame for a strong person. Just after Jia Yan sent Cecilia away, and just after flying out of the subspace, a communication prompt from Zibala came from the communicator with a signal. Humph, you actually leaked my news. Do you think I will still care about you? Jia Yan's eyes flashed, and he was about to hang up the call, but seemed to have thought of something, so he picked up the call. He still has some expectations for Zibala's research, and through previous conversations with Sisla, Jia Yan also understood that Zibala did not deliberately reveal his existence, but she was not reliable enough and was tracked to Jia Yan by his father. That's all. Master Jia Yan, are you okay? Didn't my father do anything to you? When Zibala saw Jia Yan connected to the communication, she almost cried with joy on the other side of the screen. You must know that her admiration for Jia Yan is real. Of course I'm fine, Ziba, please tell me how the research is going now. Jia Yan asked coldly. This, Mr. Jia Yan, you also know that my grandfather's scientific research strength is extremely strong. We juniors cannot reach 1/10,000th of his level, but I found some of his research in his last notes. Formulas and data, this formula is a regret of his, but it has nothing to do with your concept ship. You still tell me when it doesn't matter. It's really unreliable. Jia Yan shook his head impatiently. Zibala obviously understood the fact that he was unreliable, and felt helpless at the moment. Well, it's actually a pity. If I had my grandfather's second work, that armor, I might be able to realize my grandfather's lifelong regret. But my father would definitely refuse to take out the armor, huh? Master Jia Yan, why are you so stunned? Almost everyone in the core layer of Li Qiao's forces shared the same hatred for being blackmailed by Jia Yan. There were a few with mid-level and half-star talents who even wanted to fight Jia Yan alone. But under the obstruction of Sisla and the fear of not being able to kill Jia Yan, the Li Qiao forces were just like the fugitive group. If Crazy Mok fired a black hole bomb, the Li Qiao forces would be in dire straits. So they finally didn't fight Jia Yan. Of course, Jia Yan had already found a place to hide. His strength was no longer what it was back then, so of course he didn't dare to show up in a big way. A few days later, Jia Yan sent a clone to hide in the subspace and quietly arrived at the workshop planet where he met Sisla. No one knows why in the past few days, this planet has actually implemented controls. Some powerful people from the outside have been restricted from moving. They are inexplicable, and some even have conflicts with the Li Qiao forces. But after all, strong dragons do not suppress local snakes. All these frictions end with the compromise of the strong outsiders. And when Jia Yan's clone appeared outside the star, all the Li Qiao powerful people on the star seemed to be facing a formidable enemy, and they all looked at the legendary sub-level existence in fear. Sure enough, there is no 1.5 star on this planet. He must not want to cause me to misunderstand. The real body hiding near the clone felt the brainwave power of the strong man on the star of the workshop. After not noticing any of the half-star masters, he immediately smiled and then controlled the clone to go below. After arriving at the hotel room he had rented on this planet, Jia Yan's muscular clone was surprised to see a half-star strong man here. Don't worry, I'm just handing over to you, the half-star powerhouse spoke. His talent should be that of concealing aura. Even Jia Yan did not sense his existence when he explored the subspace before. But his strength now seems to be only a medium-talented half-star level. Jia Yan is sure to escape from the opponent's hands, and may even counter-kill him with the cooperation of his avatar, so he is the only one he sees at this time. Then let go of your worries. Then he looked at this existence again, and the clone's eyes suddenly moved. On the side of this half-star being, a piece of metal material similar to the concept ship he saw for the first time stood beside the half-star strong man. Etc. Seeing that the clone wanted to go over and touch the metal material, The other party sneered and stopped the clone from moving forward. Your Excellency Bai Wangfu. Is that your name? I believe you knew before you came here that the deal between the leader of my forces and Namoke, but he exchanged the damaged concept ship with me. This is the battle armor. If you want to touch the battle armor, please take out the concept ship. In the subspace, Jia Yan's heart was spinning. To be honest, the opponent only has 1.5 stars, or even a half star with medium talent who doesn't seem to be very strong. Jia Yan has an urge to rob and kill the opponent on the spot, and then take it. The battle armor and concept ship left without paying anything. But after thinking about it, Jia Yanfu's eyes sparkled. No, I still want Ziba to do that for me. If we completely break with the Li Qiao forces, then it's a matter of two people whether she will help me. Thinking of the thing mentioned in Zibala's communication that day, Jia Yan felt a little hot in his heart, and then made a decision. Although it's dangerous, you still have to give it a try. Jia Yan finally made up his mind. The concept ship is here. Jia Yan controlled the clone and said this angrily. Then in the subspace, Jia Yan was wearing the body of the concept ship, and the memory metal flowed slowly, and then turned into a whole piece of black metal. Just as the clone finished speaking, a faint crack opened in the space around him. The clone's feet poked into it, and the metal block turned into a concept ship was directly taken into his hands. Afterwards, the clone's feet were taken out, and the huge piece of memory metal transformed into the concept ship was also taken out along with it. It was almost the same metal as the armor, except for some missing pieces, which was placed in front of the opponent. Seeing this scene, the hidden aura monster looked deeply at the subspace that was slowly closing again, and then an unknown expression flashed across its eyes. Okay, let's trade. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1007. The last tense moment arrived, and the other party used the power of brain waves to slowly send the armor to the clone. Jia Yan controlled the clone and looked at the flying black metal piece lightly. Etc. He suddenly took control of the clone and spoke suddenly. Huh? Mr. MOK actually wants to regret it? The half-star monster was beyond Jia Yan's imagination, and it behaved like it was running away. He raised his front legs and was about to run away to one side. Jia Yan was stunned, and then suddenly he really wanted to laugh. It seems that the image of crazy MOK has been too demonized by others, otherwise this moderately gifted and semi-star genius from the Li Qiao force would not be so frightened. What Jia Yan wanted to laugh about was that he was worried about others plotting against him, but he didn't expect that others were worried about him plotting against others. Ahem, senior, I just want to inspect the goods. Don't worry, I won't go back on my promise, the clone spoke out in embarrassment. The other party took half a step back and retracted his feet, and nodded with the same embarrassment. Okay, Mr. Bai Wangfu, feel free to inspect the goods. In fact, most of the strong monsters from the Li Qiao force are interested in technology and do not participate in many battles. Of course, this does not mean that they are not powerful, but they do not have much experience in strength, so when faced with a cross it is normal for the Madman team to be more nervous than ordinary monsters. When the clone opened the subspace before, this Li Qiao force monster discovered that there seemed to be another monster inside. He understood that crazy MOK was a powerful space talent, and now he thought that the other party was inside. And suddenly knew that he was extremely dangerous. That's why he tried to escape as soon as the clone spoke. Neither of them broke anything, and the other's performance made Jia Yan calmer. He controlled the clone to move forward, and then clicked on the armor. Your Excellency, this battle armor is almost unusable. There are very few people in our semi-star class who can control it. Even if they can control it, it will absorb the power from the body and become almost unusable. If you detect it, please say goodbye. Thought it was a fake. The other party was a little worried that Jia Yan's clone didn't know the goods. The clone nodded, and then looked around the spherical armor memory metal calmly. It is true that the metal is memory metal. Although it is possible that the other party used technology to get some memory metal to fool him, but seeing that they are so afraid of the performance of Moke, they must not dare to use fakes. After all, the explosion threat of a man-made black hole is just like how a certain family named Jin threatened other countries with nuclear bombs on Earth in the past. Even if they didn't attack him, they wouldn't dare not use nuclear bombs. Very well, then let's make the deal. Jia Yan in the subspace looked deeply at the mostly damaged concept ship, feeling a little reluctant in his heart. After all, he had accompanied him in many battles, and even wore equipment that could surpass one or even several large-level battles. Jia Yan seems to be similar to his partner. But there is no way now. The concept ship will be completely damaged in a few months. Now exchange it for one that is not much different from the concept ship. There is even a battle armor with that kind of improvement method in Zbala. It can be considered a helpless move. I hope you can be repaired by the Lakiao forces in the future. Jia Yan sighed, and then the concept ship was controlled by his clone and placed on the ground. Then the equally dark armor memory metal on the other side came to the clone. Without any stop at all, after checking that there were no explosive devices or small hands and feet on it, the spherical memory metal directly entered the subspace. Haha, a new fighting partner is here. In the subspace, Jia Yan looked at an object that was almost identical to the concept ship he saw before, and then skillfully pressed a button on the surface of the metal ball. This is the start button. There are distortions everywhere in the subspace, but this has no effect on the armor, which has basically the same defense as the concept ship. This also confirmed to Jia Yan that the opponent was the armor. Equipment. Jia Yan gave the order, and saw the ball of golden memory spread out, and then wrapped Jia Yan's entire Mosquito body. The huge memory metal wrapped Jia Yan's body, and Jia Yan immediately felt a sense of security inside it. After all, he had just come out of the package of the concept ship, and his strength instantly dropped to that of the Venerable, so he still felt a little insecure. It feels like it has the same meaning as the concept ship, so what's the difference? After being completely wrapped by the armor, Jia Yan secreted cellular power while the armor frantically absorbed the surface power of his body, satisfying the needs of the armor. And this act of sucking is just like the concept ship that no one can use. It is estimated that this armor has been in Li Qiao's power for so long, and there may not be anyone who can fully use it. Jia Yan can use it as an evolved beast. This is an essential difference in biological species. Not long after, a metal monster that was almost the same as Jia Yan's previous crow image appeared in the subspace. Well, I see. Some functions on the panel are no longer missing, and even the propulsion capability has disappeared. Alas, it is indeed a streamlined prototype, but it seems to have some functions that the concept ship does not have. Jia Yan is inside the battle armor. In fact, after the transformation, it feels almost exactly the same as the concept ship. It is equivalent to his Mosquito body wearing a radiation-enhancing combat capability armor. Haha, apart from reducing the long-distance flight capability, this is almost the same as the concept ship. At least in terms of close combat, there is almost no difference from the perfect concept ship in increasing my radiation. Even after my previous body increased my strength, its current strength is 1 or 2 points stronger than the concept ship that was in perfect condition that day. No, the additional functions of this battle armor are completely for combat. To a certain extent, it is more powerful than the concept ship's radiation increase, but the stability of the energy seems to be a bit poor. No wonder it is recognized as a prototype. But this difference doesn't matter to me at all. Jia Yan almost burst into laughter. As soon as I put on this armor, a powerful feeling came to my heart again, even much stronger than before. Coupled with my greatly enhanced space ability, is it possible for me now to fight head-on with a highly talented semi-star? Jia Yan had a dark look in his eyes. Even if there is still a difference, it's not that far away, right? On the star of the workshop, the moderately gifted and semi-star powerhouses from the Lakiao forces in the hotel looked at the Bai Wangfu, who stood dumbly, at a loss. Originally, the other party should have left directly after completing the transaction. But now Bai Wangfu was standing still, and the battle armor had also arrived in the subspace. As for the broken body of the concept ship thrown by the opponent, this moderately talented and half-star strong man did not dare to go and take it. He is afraid. Well, not bad. Very good. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the room. The moderately talented and half-star expert was stunned for a moment, and then his sense of vigilance suddenly increased. The voice that made the sound was not from the stunned Bai Wangfu, but from a cracked subspace. Even though the semi-star existed, he had already guessed that Moke was hiding in the surrounding subspace, but he never thought that the other party would actually come out directly. This is definitely a prelude to wanting to regret it. He almost cried, all because of his talent. Every colleague assigned him the right task, but now it's okay, the other party really wants to do something small. Although Moke is only a sub-level, he is a lunatic. He is a semi-star with little combat experience, and he may not be able to defeat the opponent. You, what are you going to do? I'm going to call someone. This moderately talented semi-star level being saw the metal crow stepping out of the subspace, although he had never seen it before. I have seen the other party in person, but in the video, the screams and the constant battle fluctuations are often seen in the news. Now seeing the other party, he has changed his previous cold image and looks completely frightened. My little daughter-in-law is the same. Well. Jia Yan had just stepped out of the subspace, and was lucky not to be staggered by the strong man's cry. Ahem, I'm just passing by. Don't worry, senior. By the way, we have a great time cooperating. Goodbye. Jia Yan looked at the strong man and then laughed. The body transformed into a battle armor with the image of a metal crow, and the real body and the clone hit the hotel room wall together, creating a large hole, and then both flew into the sky. That's right, this is Jia Yan's first arrogant behavior since his strong return. Even if there is no black hole as a restraining force, he still thinks that his strength is not much different from that of the disciples who fought against the disciples that day. That's why he dared to appear directly in his true form and announce his existence. In the starry sky far away from this workshop planet, a large battleship fleet formed a formation and was waiting in full formation. What? Then Jia Yan actually appeared with his companions and destroyed civilian buildings. I don't care about such trivial matters. Did he break the contract? I have already seen them. If he breaks the contract, we will launch an attack now. In the fleet, a highly gifted semi-star being yelled at the monster on the other end of the communication. Within the fleet's detection field of view, two monsters of almost the same size appeared together in front of them. It turns out that these two monsters are Jia Yan and his clone. Sure enough, there is their fleet here. Jia Yan also saw the fleet from a distance. After thinking about it, Jia Yan split into another space and went head-on. He wanted to see if the other party would attack him. But when Jia Yan approached, the fleet shone a light of peace. He. The big mosquito turned into a metal crow, like an unruly and powerful monster, flying unscrupulously through the center of this huge fleet. Even if any warship fires, it may hurt him, but Jia Yan is not afraid. A moment later, he passed through the entire fleet of Lakiao forces. The moment he passed through, the figure suddenly entered the subspace. After announcing his arrival and then leaving arrogantly, Jia Yan's reputation as crazy MOK was completely confirmed. Asshole. Thanks to book friends Chu Pingsuan and Tushui Mulinson for their tips. Please remember the first domain name of this book. Literature Library mobile version reading website. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1008. Asshole. Seeing that Moke was so bold, Sith almost stared out of his eyes when he passed through the Lichiao Force fleet and was driving a one-man battleship in the fleet. As a highly talented semi-star, he has hardly experienced similar humiliation since he achieved semi-star status. But today's Jia Yan not only reminded him of the humiliation he experienced when he was weak, but more importantly, this MOK. He was just a sub-level at all. It was normal for him to be so angry that he would vomit blood when a sub-level teased the entire fleet with such disregard. But in fact, he didn't dare to take action. The more he learned about the shadow of the famous tree and Madman MOK's previous battle in the Dark Realm, the more he tried to avoid it. He didn't want to offend a being who could get huge benefits from the disciples in the Dark Realm and dare to come to the Lichiao forces to continue causing trouble. After all, the Lichiao forces were still weaker than the disciples. Of. Ha ha ha. So happy. Jia Yan, who entered the subspace, ignored the thoughts of the Lichiao forces behind him and just flew with his armor at this time. It is as famous as the concept ship, but it is just a little bit different. It is indeed not bad. Even during the flight, Jia Yan felt that some of its functions were more powerful than the concept ship. First and second, it is a subjective judgment. Especially when Grandpa Zibala looked at it from the perspective of a scientist, of course he would think that a concept ship with the ability to fly long distances would be better, but the armor that purely assists combat is different from what I imagined. It seems to be better than the concept ship in terms of combat assistance. Jia Yan checked the armor's data while flying. In some numerical values, the numerical values given by the battle armor are even far higher than those of the concept ship. It's just a little more unstable in terms of motivation. I have to pay attention. Jia Yan analyzed all this, then took his clone and flew in a certain direction of Lichiao's forces. In fact, the battle armor does not have the ability to fly long distances when worn. That is relatively speaking. The energy conversion rate of the battle armor is not as good as that of the concept ship. But as long as Jia Yan's subspace is available, there will be a mountain of energy behind it. Material, the impact on such long distances is minimal. Especially when Jia Yan flies, he uses subspace, so the speed problem is not much different. Therefore, for Jia Yan, the concept ship can actually be used by this battle armor. Perfect replacement. There is also something that Ziba is going to get next. If I guess correctly, as long as this thing can be successful, then this battle armor will be far better than the concept ship. It's a blessing in disguise, but it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe it's me. Jia Yan's heart became even hotter when he thought of Ziba's things. Arriving at an uninhabited planet on the border of Lichiao's forces, Jia Yan landed. After waiting on this star for several days, Jia Yan was not in a hurry. Even if Zibala went to tell the secret again, the Lichiao forces had made it clear that they would not provoke Jia Yan, and would not easily start a war with Jia Yan even at any cost, so he was not worried. Will Zibala bring a group of people from Lichiao forces? Of course, to a certain extent, Jia Yan is still relatively reassured about Zibala. Sure enough, 3 days later, a one-man battleship swayed onto the planet. Thanks to the power of the battle armor, Jia Yan had already sensed that there was only one monster on the battleship, Zibala, as early as 10,000 kilometers away. Master Jia Yan, you are indeed still waiting for me, Ziba is so touched. Zibala parked the warship far away and then flew towards Jia Yan. Haha, Ziba, long time no see. Although Jia Yan didn't have such deep feelings for this fan, he still had a slight affection for her. Although he had exposed his existence before, he also made him wait in disguise. When it comes to battle armor, the merits outweigh the disadvantages. Zibala expressed her extremely touched emotions that Jia Yan did not blame her behavior. If it were not for the different races, they might have agreed to marry each other now. After chatting for a while, Jia Yan told her that she had something to do next and hoped that she would come up with her research results. Oh, yes, Mr. Jia Yan is very busy, so I'll just take out the things. Zibala flew back to the battleship, and when he reappeared, a piece of memory metal material similar to a battle armor was already behind him. Is this what you have? There was a faint light in Jia Yanfu's eyes as he looked at the substance Xiang Zibala was holding. That's right, my grandfather once said in his notebook that the thing he regretted most in his life was that the battle armor had a breakthrough point but was not completed. If this thing had been completed earlier, then the battle armor would have been the most regretful thing in his life. Excellent work. Now I have used most of the raw materials and semi-finished products he left behind and simply made this prototype based on it. However, the functions are not as good as what he described, and there are also battery life issues, so I'm sorry, Mr. Jia Yan. I can only do this. Haha, it's too late for me to thank you, so how can I blame you? There was a flash of shock in Jia Yanfu's eyes. Looking at the black memory metal that was almost as big as a battle armor, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. Okay, Ziba, even if we have to say goodbye to each other again, we will definitely have a chance to meet in the future. Goodbye now. The implication of Jia Yan's words is that she will still have something that Zibala needs to do. Even if this female strong monster's achievements in science are not as good as those of the concept ship author, they are definitely good. What's more, she knows that Jia Yan many secrets have not been revealed, so they are worthy of trust. Goodbye, Lord Jia Yan, you must remember me. Zibala almost cried. This was the feeling of parting with her idol. It was just like the little girl on Earth who is a fan of stars. In her own opinion, it was extremely noble and sad. Ahem, but don't let others be mentally retarded, because this is equivalent to the fact that thousands of girls on the Earth are mentally retarded and will become the public enemy of all women. Not long after, a dark light rose from the star into the sky, then entered the subspace, and lost all traces in an instant. Haha, so many things have happened between me and your Excellency Jia Yan. I will report it anonymously and make them jealous to death. As soon as Zibala saw Jia Yan leave, she couldn't wait to record what happened between her and Jia Yan's hung on the internet. Of course, she had nothing that Jia Yan couldn't mention. Jia Yan didn't know that as soon as he stepped forward with his front foot, Naxaba started recording with his back foot. Anyway, now that he is strong again, he doesn't care about leaks. Now I'll go back to the Dark Realm first. It will take some time to combine this thing with the armor. It's more convenient to complete it in Tingtian Pavilion. Seeing the large ball of memory metal material he carried, Jia Yan's joy became even more obvious. At the same time, Jia Yan also had the idea of returning to the Tianhe force, after all, it was so close. But he thought about it and gave up the idea. The disciple group is still causing trouble for him, and the Bei group will definitely not let him go if they know that he indirectly killed a half-star in their force. Jia Yan himself is not too afraid, but the Tianhe force it's different. Even if he won't be destroyed by the two dark forces, he will still be in big trouble. It's better to wait until he becomes more powerful and can threaten the two dark forces. This armor is really too slow. During the flight, even if it was traveling tens of thousands of kilometers in subspace, Jia Yan still found that the battle armor was indeed different from the concept ship, and it could not fly fast at all when worn. Moreover, the waste of energy is even more severe. If Jia Yan hadn't prepared a large amount of high-energy substances before arriving, he could hardly support the consumption now. Now that I'm returning to Tingtian Pavilion in the Dark Realm, there's still a certain amount of time before I arrive, so I'll spiritually come back to Earth and teach my niece and Jiarong. Maybe the reaction from the Great Empire will come too. During Jia Yan's flight, after learning that the armor was slower, he immediately had the idea of returning to Earth to change his mood. After all, there is no danger in the journey, so it would be more comfortable to return to Earth. and I have a vague feeling that the Earth and this genius battlefield are gradually becoming somewhat connected. Of course, this is unlikely. After all, the two sides are too far apart. Jia Yan had already begun to doubt the connection between the Earth and the genius battlefield after learning that there were actually evolved beasts in the genius battlefield, but so far he still didn't have many clues. Therefore, he wanted to return to Earth more often and investigate the surrounding information of the Orion Arm, especially to contact the Great Empire. Maybe he would be able to find clues. After thinking this way, Jia Yan slowly began to change his mind. The connection between the long-distance clone caused by the quantum entanglement theory and Jia Yan's true body is almost cosmic. At least at such a distance, there is not much delay at all. I forgot, I need to ask Zibala about how to enhance the clone. When Jia Yan connected with the clone, he was suddenly startled, and then smiled bitterly. In fact, too many things happened in the Li Qiao forces, which made Jia Yan forget even this. Now in the secondary space, there is no communication signal. When we get to Tingtian Pavilion, we can communicate with her remotely. Anyway, the clone is not in a hurry to get strong power now. Jia Yan thought for a while and put the matter aside. But he never thought that his idea would lead to a situation that made him regret. Puff. Jia Yan's spirit changed slightly. He felt that his spirit broke through the endless space in an instant. After a soft sound, he came into a slightly unfamiliar body. This is where the clone comes. So weak. As soon as the clone arrived, Jia Yan's first thought was that it was too weak. Opening his eyes, Jia Yan looked around. Still in his own house in Jia's house. Huh? Why is it that no one in the family is at Jia's house? It's strange. When Jia Yan released his brainwave power, he was slightly shocked. It turned out that in his brainwave power perception, all his relatives in the Jia family were absent. 8. Please remember the first domain name of this book. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1009. It shouldn't be an accident. The guards at home are all here, and there are no signs of enemy intrusion around. After Jia Yan looked around again, he determined that it was not an accident, and then spread the much weaker brainwave power of his clone towards the surrounding waves. This power is indeed a little weaker than before. If I had known better, I should have stopped and asked Ziba. Feeling that the power of his clone was now so weak that even Jia Yan couldn't bear it, he regretted why he didn't stop flying and communicate with Zibala just now. Forget it, it's just a day or two, it'll be fine. When the brainwave power dispersed, Jia Yan finally saw the familiar faces of his family in a very large hotel in the city. Haha, I see, we are having a birthday party. Jia Yan smiled, and then his expression changed a little. Return to the city, a large city with a history of less than 20 years. Even though the current Huihua city seems to be no longer expanding, as long as there is the Jia family sitting here, the status of Huihua city will not change. There is a saying on the earth that the head of the entire earth is the capital of China, but the head does not count. The city of return is the heart. If the heart does not agree, even the things decided by the head can be refuted. Just like a certain welfare project a few years ago, it was rejected by the Earth Alliance headquarters in the capital of China. However, the MRS Lin from the Jia family spread the question that day, and the entire policy was slapped in the face the next day. The big shots who decided to veto quickly changed their tone. It is precisely because of the uniqueness of Huihua city that many people have immigrated here. Even if it is no longer expanding, the city's appearance is more noble and luxurious. Of course, when it comes to luxury in the city, who can compare with the Jia family? Even in the entire Earth civilization, which one dares to compare with the Jia family? Just like today, an important member of the Geo family celebrates his birthday, causing the entire city to panic. Because the Geo family has a tradition of protecting children, it is impossible for the media to enter. Even if they can enter to celebrate, they will only have some status. It is only possible for extremely tall people. The entire return city saw superclass speedsters that were rarely seen in the past, as well as escort warships of high-ranking government officials, all gathering towards this small return city. Of course they also understand that this is the birthday of an adult of the Geo family. After all, the media can still tell this news. Otherwise, how can we implement the policy of blocking roads to the people? No one would say that the Geo family uses power. For the family that the entire Earth relies on, it is estimated that except for a few anti-human beings in this race, no one will have any ill intentions towards them. I don't know whose birthday it is. The pomp and ceremony this time is really not timely. In the past, the Geo family's birthdays didn't always have such a grand pomp, right? Hey, you didn't know this. The one celebrating this birthday is the biological son of Mr. Jiayan. This is the first time that the Geo family has pushed him out and put him in front of the high-level officials of the Earth. You said this status, can the pomp be kept low-key? I'll go, Mr. Jiayan's biological son? You won't lie to me, will you? Mr. Jiayan still has a son. Me, great, Mr. Jiayan has an heir on my Earth. The passers-by I talked to all seemed to have inside information. Of course, if the Geo family wanted to cover up the inside information they could obtain, it would be very simple, but the Geo family did not bother to do so. After all, it is difficult to completely cover up this kind of thing, and there is no need to cover it up. Compared with the crazy rumors from the outside world, in the largest hotel in Huiwai City, Jialin and her husband, who used to be a killer but now have a completely literary look and wearing quiet glasses, stood at the door of the hotel. Greet guests. Ms. Lin actually greeted her personally. This is so rude. Please don't hurt yourself in the cold wind. A man who looked like a high-ranking official entered the hotel. When he saw Jialin at the door, his expression suddenly changed. He changed from his previous condescending expression and came to Jialin like a pug, wanting to kneel down. Haha, it turns out it's the current foreign minister of the Star-Spangled Banner country. Thank you for coming. I'll be fine here. Jialin used her ladylike manner and nodded to the senior official with a smile. That person also knew his identity and was not able to talk to the eldest princess of the Geo family for too long, so after saying a few words, he entered the hotel. Here it can be almost said that there is one post every 3 steps and one sentry every 5 steps. After all, the people here are all high-ranking officials of this Earth civilization, and with the Geo family having a more respected status, security must be at its best. Several guests entered the venue, but they caught a glimpse of some people with higher official positions next to the chief seat, chatting with the Geo family's parents and 2 girls. Beside them, there was a little boy of 8 or 9 years old, who was staying quietly aside under the leadership of a woman with a frosty expression. That child must be Lord Jiayan's son. He is indeed like a father. A high-ranking Chinese official looked at the boy over there from a distance, with a flash of joy on his face. You must know that as a high-ranking official of the Huaxia clan, he knows very well what kind of power the Huaxia clan relies on to dominate almost the entire Earth civilization. That is to rely on the power of the Geo family, especially the majesty of that great-level powerhouse, His Excellency Jiayan. But the previous high-ranking officials of the Huaxia clan had always had a regret, that is, His Excellency Jiayan rarely appeared on the Earth. Anyone who understands that this gentleman must often be on alien planets, but no one knows what he passed through. Just a way to leave the Earth. If Master Jiayan doesn't come back one day, or something happens and he can't get away, and something unexpected happens to the Earth, wouldn't it be the end? So now when he saw the little boy, who obviously looked similar to Master Jiayan, he smiled, especially when he saw that this little boy had reached the early stage of his heaven level without deliberately radiating the brainwave power. To an extent that was unimaginable, he was even more smiling. This little boy doesn't need to be as scary as his father. As long as he has half the strength of his father, wouldn't the future Earth be more capable of walking sideways in the stars? Wouldn't the Huaxia clan be able to rule all the countries on Earth for centuries and millennia? Yes, our technology is not strong, but we have strong people. Tisk, 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 this child is really different. But is the lady next to him his mother? How could it be possible? Her strength seems to be far greater than mine. Is it possible that the whole family is such a terrifying existence? This senior official of the Huaxia kingdom looked at the mother and son with some surprise, and then he did not dare to look any further for fear of being rude. Anyway, to anyone on Earth, the Geo family is mysterious, and they will not be surprised even if any strong person appears in it. The people around them pointed at the little boy, mother, and son, and talked secretly, but the mother and son didn't seem to like this environment too much. "Mom, can I go home? I don't like it here." The little boy is naturally Jiarong, the son of Jiayan in name only. At this time, he looked uncomfortably at the adults who were secretly observing him, feeling extremely uncomfortable. You must know that his current strength is already at the peak of the mid-level heaven level. He can hear the words of the people around him. Although of course these words are all praise, he feels that he doesn't like this kind of attention. "No, didn't your grandma just tell you that we can't leave?" Next to Jiarong is her mother Satsuma-chan. Her expression is not very standard now. Although she is not nervous or anything, the way she is holding a wine glass but not drinking seems awkward. Of course, no one dares to say anything bad to her. Everyone here knows that there are many strong people in the Geo family. Even among the guards, there are a lot of heaven-level beings. If they say anything here, everyone can hear it using the power of brainwaves. "But Mom, Dad doesn't recognize me, doesn't he?" Jiarong is 8 years old, and he vaguely understands and doesn't understand many things. Now when he hears people around him saying that he is the son of Jiayan, he feels very uncomfortable when he thinks that Jiayan has never admitted that he is his son. "He is your father. Don't you know that your grandparents love you?" Satsuma Kori obviously did not have the emotional intelligence to care for his children, and the words he spoke to his son now were not very convincing. "Well, if he is my father, why doesn't he come to me to celebrate my birthday? All the children I watch on TV have their fathers celebrating their birthdays." Little Jiarong looked around, and then saw some children of the same age who came. Being able to hold his parents' hands made him feel uncomfortable for no reason. He has been very sensible and smart since he was a child, but his memory does not mention his father, whom he has never met. Even his mother does not hold hands with him very often, and she does not even love him as much as other mothers. "Dad doesn't want me, it must be because I said I hated him before and wanted to defeat him." Jiarong's eyes were sore and tears almost flowed out. Everyone around looked at Jiarong, but when they saw that the little boy was about to burst into tears, they all smiled slightly. After all, he is still an 8-year-old child. He must be scared to see such a big scene. Even that Longer can't treat him as an adult. One by one, the guests understood Jiarong's emotions. Of course, they didn't know that Jiarong was not afraid of this situation. It was just that after thinking of Jiayan, he felt that he had done something wrong. "Haha, Xiaorong, why are you crying?" Just as Jiarong thought about it more and more, and tears were about to roll down from the corners of his eyes, a soft voice came to his ears. This male voice is extremely gentle, just like those fathers who come with their children. "Huh," Jiarong's face suddenly lit up with joy, and then he raised his head. "Xiaorong, what's wrong?" Seeing its appearance, Satsuma Shrine was a little confused. Jiarong ignored his mother at all. Tears almost overflowed from his face, but the difference from before was that these tears were tears of joy. Mobile phone users, please browse and read for a better reading experience. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1010. Finally, a man with his hands behind his back, holding a small toy in his hands, stepped into the sky step by step into everyone's sight. Jiarong shouted. "Dad! Dad! Dad!" Some of the big shots had not yet reacted. When Jiarong called out the words "Dad," they were all startled. Then they seemed to be under a spell of immobilization. Who on this earth can be called daddy by this child? There is only one person in the entire universe, and this person's identity and status can be said to be extremely high on earth, like a god in the clouds. And now that Jiarong has called out his father, doesn't that mean that the person they thought would never appear has actually come? Suddenly, every senior executive followed Jiarong's gaze and looked out the hotel window where he was looking. Outside the floor-to-ceiling window that occupied an entire wall, a man slowly came from the sky. Although his expression was not pretending to be majestic, it could be seen that the higher UPS on Earth couldn't help but lower their heads when they saw him. Because this is the supreme figure respected by all people in today's Earth, and it is also an important reason why the entire Earth can survive to this day, and even has a growing reputation among the stars. Jia Yan. In the entire Earth civilization, he is undoubtedly the most powerful person, and he is also the great benefactor of the Earth civilization. Jia Yan was still smiling, and when he came outside the floor-to-ceiling window, he was not seen destroying the window. He seemed to have passed through the window. In fact, of course, he entered the subspace instantly and appeared behind the floor-to-ceiling window. Entering the hotel ground, Jia Yan stepped down. The surrounding high-level officials of the Earth world who saw Jia Yan approaching quickly lowered their heads in excitement. They also wanted to talk to Jia Yan. It could be seen that Jia Yan's eyes were completely focused on the children over there. Those who are sensible do not dare to disturb. They can reach the top of the Earth civilization, and their brains are naturally not bad. If they don't even have the ability to read the atmosphere, they shouldn't mess around. Jia Yan's clone came to Jiarong without being disturbed. Jia Yan actually sighed deeply when he saw this child. Even though Jia Yan still had some resistance to his dad before, but now he has nothing to do with it. The child is still young, and recalling his childhood is too miserable. Jia Yan does not think that the other person is his child, but he does not deny that the other person has his own blood. It takes time to change the concept, but it will not affect Jia Yan's important role in this child. On his birthday, bring him a moment of happiness. Xiaorong, happy birthday, come on, time is short, and I don't have any good gifts for you. This is the gadget Jian Chang made just now. I gave it to you as a birthday present. Take it. Jia Yan handed over the toy in his hand. When everyone saw this, everyone took a breath. I used to think that the toy in Jia Yan's hand was a simple stuffed toy bought in the store, but now that I took a closer look, it turned out that it was not at all. Jia Yan felt relieved at his quick wit. When he saw the birthday party here before, he couldn't think of any good gifts at the moment, so he flew into the sky, condensed the water vapor in the clouds with the power of brain waves, and finally used a trace of brainwave power is blocked, and it looks like a stuffed toy, but in fact it is not at all. When I got the stuffed toy, it was filled with moisture and soft when I pinched it. Jiarong didn't dare to take it yet. Jia's mother on the side came up and pushed Jiarong. Xiaorong, why don't you want it? Do you not like the gift your father gave you? Jiarong quickly accepted the stuffed toy from Wang Jian. To be honest, his personality didn't like this kind of thing, but now that Jia Yan gave it to him, he was of course extremely happy. Thank you, Dad. He chuckled in a milky voice. Then he seemed to revert to his childlike character in an instant, and he and Jiaruo, who was on the side, went to play with stuffed toys with a smile on their face. Jia Yan's arrival almost brought the entire event to a climax. To know that this supreme exists, almost most of the senior officials present have never seen it with their own eyes. After all, Jia Yan has not been on the earth for a long time, and the few times he appeared, it was when the earth was in danger. He came to Jia Rong's birthday dinner today, which was beyond everyone's expectations. Well, if I had known that Your Excellency Jia Yan would come in person today, I should have dressed more gorgeously. I should bring my son here. He has just become the junior adjutant of a warship in the Alliance fleet. If he can meet Mr. Jia Yan in person, even if he just talks trash, his future will be smooth. Why are you doing so much? Let's see if we can talk to His Excellency Jia Yan. When Jia Yan and Jia Rong finished talking, almost all the big shots who came wanted to move forward. However, several Jia family guards with sharp eyes and quick hands came to the Jia family like the wind and separated them from Jia Yan and the Jia family. In front of Jia Yan, these so-called big shots are just little fans who need to be isolated. Let them come over. Jia Yan's voice sounded behind these Jia family guards. When a group of Jia family guards, who were very excited because they heard Jia Yan's voice in person, retreated, Jia Yan stepped out and came to the front of a group of high-level people on the earth. Thank you for safeguarding the interests and development of our Earth civilization for a long time. I have very little time to return to Earth. Without your efforts, the Earth would not have such peace today. Thank you. Jia Yan controlled the power of his brainwaves and brought a glass of red wine to his side to pay tribute to the great figures. No, if it weren't for Your Excellency Jia Yan's great achievements, where would the Earth be today? We should all thank you for the peace you have brought to us. A senior member of the Chinese clan quickly flattered him loudly. That's right, compared to Mr. Jia Yan, our results are almost as different as a bright moon and a firefly. Mr. Jia Yan, please don't let us down. Another senior Chinese official also hurriedly said. Due to the advantage of language, several high-level officials from the Huaxia kingdom were very quick to flatter each other. The high-level officials from other countries on the other side were in trouble. Although the Chinese language is now the lingua franca of the entire earth, even some foreigners, the language of science and technology is all translated into Chinese. In this era, almost everyone knows some Chinese, but these senior officials from other countries really don't dare to show off their poor Chinese in this situation, otherwise they will be embarrassed. It's true, if it makes His Excellency Jia Yan unhappy, they should cry to death. Jia Yan had a few casual conversations with several high-level officials and important figures on Earth. Those who heard his words looked flattered and almost cried. Jia Yan himself didn't think it was very interesting, so he returned to the Jia family. The guards also stepped in front of them with eyes, vaguely separating a group of big shots from the Jia family. Seeing this scene, the other servants and guards of the Jia family who came to serve were extremely proud. Let's see, the so-called big shots on Earth are not the same as little fans in front of my Jia family, especially in front of Mr. Jia Yan, they are not worth mentioning at all. Several guards were whispering to each other. Mom and Dad, none of those aliens have come here. I don't want to bring them here, only to be discriminated against by the people on Earth. Jia Yan came to his parents, then looked around and saw that except for the Earthlings, there were no other aliens at the reception. He couldn't help but ask worriedly. The aliens Jia Yan spoke of were naturally not those alien civilizations and imperial civilizations who sent diplomats to the Earth, but the personnel of the Earth's forces from the gray and yellow planet he brought, those who existed in the original Earth civilization. It can be said that they helped a lot during the founding period, but if they were left behind now, it would be difficult to get through. Xiao Yan, it's like this. There have been many conflicts between Earthlings and those races on the Earth before, so these aliens moved to a city on Mars a few years ago. Father Jia didn't seem to think of Jia. At this time, Yan still didn't know where the creatures were, and said with some surprise. I see. Jia Yan nodded. He knew that this kind of thing was unavoidable. After all, they are not the same race and it is difficult to blend together. Like in alien civilizations, those beings of different races can blend together. I don't know how many horrific pasts we have gone through before we can reach that point. If the Earth civilization had not gone through those processes, it would be impossible for the Earth civilization to merge with the aliens from the Grey Star. But in this, Jia Yan has a vague sense of crisis. After all, this kind of thing can easily develop into a war. Now he is still on the Earth, and both sides have him to hold him down. It will be okay for the time being, but if one day he leaves for a long time, what will happen? That's a big deal. Jia Yan drank some wine with his relatives, and when he was feeling happy, his expression suddenly changed. Less than 1,000 meters above the Earth Hotel, a ball of snow-white material, like a projectile, slowly exploded. Everyone in the whole world heard this sound. Boom! What happened? Don't be afraid, Your Excellency, Jia Yan is still there. With him here, nothing else will happen. That's right. During the sudden tremor, the entire hotel was shaken, but except for the initial fright, none of the senior executives and the Jia family had any fear. In normal times, of course some people would panic because of this huge earthquake, but now, with Jia Yan present, who is almost the strongest person in the entire starry sky, they certainly would not have any fear. Jia Yan felt this shock and was shocked at first. Then he saw energy ejected from the white light, which made the entire returned city feel shaken. He suddenly waved his hand with a somewhat unhappy look on his face. Puff! The space above the entire hotel seemed to be condensed, instantly freezing the fluctuations from the source of vibration into one piece. Then, in the land of white light, a front foot slowly stepped out. Master Jia Yan, the most powerful person on earth, is truly worthy of his reputation. When gravity moves, it will be blocked if it is blocked. It is powerful, the owner of the front foot said lightly. Humph. 8 Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1011. Snort. The owner of the 4-foot responded with a cold snort from Jia Yan. After he snorted coldly, all the high-level earthlings in the hotel venue had lost sight of Jia Yan's clone. And almost at the same moment, not 100 meters away from the frozen place, a figure faintly appeared outside the white light. He is Jia Yan's clone, who instantly traveled through space. This scene not only shocked the people on Earth below, but also the creature that stepped out of the land of white light with its 4-foot. It was also shocked and almost retracted its feet. Not only can it block gravitational wave energy, but it also has the ability to travel beyond my imagination. I must not be reckless, so I should retreat first and ask him for his details. This being actually wanted to retreat when he saw Jia Yan coming to his side easily. Since this friend is here, please stay as a guest. Jia Yan made a calm sound. Then the creature that was about to retract its feet was forced out of the land of white light by a terrifying force. This was a 200-meter behemoth with a look of fear on its face. He has a huge human-like cheek, but his body is like a lion. If he were to moan, he would be somewhat similar to the Sphinx of Egypt on Earth. His body faintly exudes a brainwave power energy that is comparable to that of outside semi-star level creatures, but at most it is as powerful as an ordinary half-star level being, and may even be weaker. He looked in shock at Jia Yan, who had forced himself out with just a wave of brain power. The other person is just a small civilized human on Earth, but when he looks at this earthly man now, he feels like he is looking at a terrifying creature that far exceeds him. My friend, today is my puppy's birthday. Are you also here to celebrate my son's birthday? Jia Yan looked at the somewhat embarrassed semi-star level monster, and then asked with a slight smile. He could tell the origin of this monster at a glance. It was the so-called mysterious strongman of the Great Empire. Several envoys from the Great Empire had revealed these two existences when they fought Jia Yan before. Jia Yan didn't expect that the other party would come here. Fortunately, he changed his mind today. Otherwise, if this guy came here and destroyed an earthly city, at least dozens or millions of people would be killed or injured. Haha, Your Excellency Jiayan, yes, I came here today to celebrate your son's birthday, and at the same time I also want to make friends with you. The other party's eyes rolled, and then he actually hit the snake on the stick, and started a friendship with Jiayan. Really? I look at you as if you are here to avenge my previous conflict with several envoys from your empire. Am I wrong? Your Excellency is a mysterious and powerful man from the great empire. Jia Yan's clone's eyes flashed sharply, and then an invisible aura quietly suppressed the body of this monster that could almost stretch across the entire Orion arm. Well. Feeling this power, a hint of shock appeared on the other person's human face. Of course, he is one of the two terrifying powerful men of the great empire, and he is also the last trump card of the great empire against the outside invaders. Of course, although the current great empire has documents from thousands of years ago, it is still arrogant. It thinks that it has these two powerful men who are comparable to half-stars, plus the technological strength that has advanced by leaps and bounds over the past thousands of years. He believed that he had the strength to compete with the senior divine beast from thousands of years ago. But in fact it's still a million miles away. Due to technological reasons, the Orion arm did not communicate much with the outside world. Knowing that there were invading enemies from the outside world, they rushed to integrate the entire Orion arm. Previously, this half-star strong man had heard that there was a small elementary civilization on the edge of the Orion arm. He dared to drive away several ambassadors from the great empire with the help of a strong man who had become powerful through unknown means. This terrifying existence was naturally very angry and came in person to see what the so-called strongest man of Earth civilization really was. But now that he came here, he discovered that Jia Yan, who in the mouths of the envoys could only reluctantly drive them away, was far beyond imagination, and could even make him feel it with the power of a few brain waves. Shocked, he softened his attitude immediately. Well, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I really just came here to take a look. Please don't do anything to trigger a subsequent war between the two sides. Our Orion arm cannot withstand any more internal friction. He seemed helpless and said to Jia Yan. Huh, come here and take a look. If I hadn't stopped you, you would have wiped out my return city as soon as you showed up. Jia Yan snorted lightly, but it also slightly dissipated the environmental control power that locked the entire area. His control power is the space locking that appears according to his talent. This space locking does not have much effect on creatures with similar strength in the outside world, but it is different for the strong man in the Orion arm. A strong person without outside knowledge has no ability to block this kind of talent suppression. Even if he can get rid of it, his strength will be greatly reduced. Of course, Jia Yan is just using this clone to hold on. In fact, the power of Jia Yan's avatar has already reached the edge of exhaustion. The aggressive attitude now is completely the opposite. He understands that now he must use his own advantages to suppress the opponent, because in a real fight, even if the opponent is just an ordinary half-star level existence, there may not be much power left, and he may not be able to withstand a few attacks. Going to lose. Fortunately, this kind of intimidation worked. Your Excellency, Jia Yan, please don't shout to kill. Our two major civilizations are neighbors in this Orion arm. Let's sit down and talk about it now. The Sphinx blinked at Jia Yan with a smile. In fact, he is also evaluating Jia Yan's strength. This guy was able to detect me as soon as I appeared. Now it seems to me that he is still in the early stage of becoming a venerable. He is even close to becoming a venerable. Why can he have the strength to suppress me? We have never heard of such a being in Orion arms. Even the one-step teleportation ability he just used is very similar to an ability called Space Shuttle recorded in the ancient documents. Could it be? This guy has been to the outside world. After thinking about it, this Sphinx is a little confused, because he doesn't think that the Earth really has the technological strength to go to the outside world of the Orion Arm, and even their great empire does not have such ability. In fact, there is a reason why the great empire cannot go to the outer star field. Even though they can now use the gravitational wave system to go back and forth in the Orion Arm in a few days, the gravitational wave channel to the outside world seems to be open to thousands of people. Years ago, it was destroyed by an unknown disaster. If you want to use the gravitational wave system to pass through, there is absolutely only one word of death. Without the gravitational wave channel, the great empire would be helpless when faced with a mere tens of light years away. My Earth is a neighbor of your great empire, Jia Yan smiled helplessly. This may still be true for the great empires, but here on Earth, let alone the great empires, even close neighbors such as the Asta Empire, without the commercial aircraft of the Asta Empire, we don't know how much it would cost based on the current Earth spaceship technology. It takes years to reach it, let alone the territory of a large empire hundreds of light years away. That's right, Your Excellency Jia Yan, let's talk on the premise of being a friendly neighbor. The Sphinx looked at Jia Yan expectantly. He has determined that Jia Yan's strength must be extremely powerful. Even if he can defeat with all his strength, it will definitely be a miserable victory. With such power, even if Jia Yan kills an imperial envoy, he can definitely be easily defeated as long as he can be won over. Okay, please come to my Jia's house. Jia Yan looked at the opponent's size, then at a warehouse somewhere in the Jia family, and took the opponent towards the bottom of Return City. And when he and the huge monster landed towards the Jia family, the whole city that had been so quiet before that you could hear a pin drop suddenly seemed like a still picture suddenly turned into a sound picture, and an extremely powerful sound erupted in an instant. Loud. Look, did you see it? What kind of monster was that just now? It's so huge, it's the size of a house with dozens of floors. I saw it, my God, there are such terrifying giant monsters in the universe. By the way, was it Mr. Jia Yan who was confronting that monster just now? I actually saw Mr. Jia Yan with my own eyes. Although I couldn't see clearly, he couldn't dare to face that kind of terrifying monster on this earth. The only one who attacks my Earth is Lord Jia Yan. Yes, it must be Lord Jia Yan, but even if he is an adult, it is an amazing thing to be able to threaten that monster. Lord Jia Yan is indeed great. Not only the ordinary people in the city, but also the high-level Earthlings in the hotel just a few hundred meters below the place where the two powerful men were talking, all of them were shaking with fear as if they had just been fished out of the water. You must know that a half-star existence, even if it only occasionally reveals a trace of aura, is not so comfortable to be felt by these big figures nearby. This is like the natural gap in species. If the other party is willing, just a trace of breath can kill everyone in the hotel except for a small number of masters. What was that just now? In the face of that kind of monster, Lord Jia Yan actually made the opponent defeated. It's simply. Each of the dignitaries looked at the Jia family, who seemed to be indifferent, with a flash of more respect. In the past, some of them had little respect for the Jia family, but now they finally understood what a terrible person the terrifying being behind the Jia family was. Even if they used to respect the Jia family on the surface, how many of them were hypocritical and how many of them still had some doubts about Jia Yan? This is an uncountable number. But when this scene happened in front of them, this group of big shots realized that in front of that kind of existence, they were really no different than a joke. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1012. Before publishing this chapter, I would like to express my condolences to the senior Huang Yi who just passed away. The passing of the predecessor, the originator of time travel novels, makes people sigh with regret. Good luck, senior. Leaving aside the big shots, Jia Yan and the terrifying behemoth arrived at a warehouse of the Jia family. Of course the huge monster knew where this place was. But looking at the surrounding houses, there was no one he could enter, and he didn't have any objections at the moment. The two beings could have gone to outer space, or even simply created a brainwave power aura to prevent the people on Earth from hearing what they said, but it was up to guests to do whatever they wanted. Since Jia Yan wanted to talk on the ground, he can only do it casually. Okay, now let's talk. Entering the huge warehouse, Jia Yan looked at the huge monster following behind, and then said lightly. Facing such a terrifying monster, Jia Yan's clone, which was smaller than the opponent's toenails, actually showed no fear. Okay, let's talk. Everything happened before is my fault, Meng Lang. Please forgive me, Your Excellency Jia Yan. When the other party saw Jia Yan sitting down to talk to him, he also became a little calmer, and then sat down on the ground. He didn't talk about whether he came here with hostility. At this point, no one had to quibble. It was meaningless. Okay, I won't talk about what you wanted to do to our Earth before. Now I want to ask, does the Great Empire know anything about the enemy that is about to attack? There is also relevant information. Let's exchange it with each other. Then after all, I am also one of the people who have dealt with them head-on. Jia Yan said. Well, it would be great if Your Excellency Jia Yan is willing to put aside the past grudges. Let me put it this way, the biochemical empire you fought before was just the front line of the upcoming enemy. They have even been exploring the periphery of the Orion Arm for hundreds of years. The Orion Arm intelligence has been probed a lot by the other party, which is a disadvantage for us. But fortunately, we have also gained something, that is, the spies have detected it, and the other party seems to be unable to send more powerful beings into our Orion Arm. Otherwise, according to us as we know, there are beings outside the Orion Arm who are far more powerful than you and me. If they could get in, today's Orion Arm would have been taken over by them. When talking about the strength of the strong people outside, the Sphinx looked at Jia Yan's expression. Seeing that Jia Yan didn't seem to be surprised at all, his heart soon moved, and he understood that Jia Yan had already known the strength of the strong people outside. Strength. This Jia Yan has definitely been to the outside world, and even has a way to go to the outside world. The Sphinx's expression condensed, and he became even more curious about Jia Yan. His mind was spinning here, but Jia Yan was also shocked and felt a sense of surprise. He was not surprised that the other party said that there were powerful people in the outside world. After all, Jia Yan himself was in the genius battlefield and knew this far better than the other party. He was just that what the Sphinx monster said about the power of the outside world. I was surprised that I couldn't enter the Orion Arm. How is that possible? My body can move in and out of this area without any hindrance. He actually said that outsiders can't enter? What's the reason? Jia Yan was a little strange, but he didn't show it at this time. So does your empire have any policies against the enemy? I see that your empire has such a unified Orion Arm formation, so it must be sure of victory. Jia Yan changed the topic and asked about the other party's confidence in the situation of the battle. Haha. Hearing Jia Yan's words, the Sphinx suddenly smiled bitterly. If we were sure, what would we do if we united the entire Orion Arm forces? The war is still going on right now at the border of the Asta Empire, that is, in the corner of the Orion Arm. The combined forces of our several empires simply cannot destroy them. At the end of the day, there were even more than a dozen venerable level monsters dead there. Jia Yan was startled. To know the strength of the biochemical empire that he knew, to Jia Yan, there were only a few venerables, not even sub-level existences. There is basically no resistance to the Great Empire coalition forces that have a semi-star level existence. It shouldn't be. As far as I know, the strength of this biochemical empire is simply impossible to resist your empire, Jia Yan said solemnly. Their original strength is not good, but in the borderland it seems that the barrier that isolates the strong people from the outside world has weakened a lot. Powerful monsters that could not pass through before can always penetrate the defensive barrier to a certain extent and perform 1 or 2 blows. This caused it is impossible for our army to defeat their last vestige of strength, the Sphinx said with a bitter smile. This monster had actually been to the front line before. It was originally chasing a venerable level monster to the border of the Orion arm. However, a force suddenly came from the border that shocked him. As a result, he was struck by that force. He was seriously injured in one blow. It is said that the owner of that power is a kind of strong person from the outside world called second level. Fortunately, such a strong person cannot enter the Orion arm at all, otherwise, he is destined to lose. The two parties talked for a while, and then under the attention of several major places on the Earth, this terrifying giant existence quietly flew out of the Geo family's location. Not long after, the entire Earth detection instrument detected another tiny shadow, flying into high altitude, and then suddenly disappeared within a time period that even the detector could not detect. It's like disappearing into the visible universe. Of course, Jia Yan's clone really disappeared into the visible universe. He entered the subspace. Well, the power of the clone is about to be exhausted, but I won't accept it if I don't go to the border to see. Moreover, the real body is about to reach the dark zone. When the time comes, I will use the communication to ask Ziba to see if there is any replenishment. If there is a way, the science in this genius battlefield must have a solution. Jia Yan thought a lot, and then controlled the clone to pass through multiple spaces and reach the small space capsule outside the Earth. The energy of the space capsule is also very low, but Jia Yan can't use it. If it's dozens of light years away, turn on the space travel mode. Although the distance will be a little off and it will consume a lot of space capsule energy, you can get there faster. Jia Yan opened the space capsule, and then the entire space capsule broke into the space. The Earth knows that Jia Yan must have left the Earth, so he acts more low-key. Fortunately, the Asta Empire and other countries also know that the terrible Lord Jia Yan of the Earth cannot even deal with the great empire, and has no regard for the Earth. Dare to make any resistance, so at least for a short time, peace continued to be maintained. Time flies. For Jia Yan, who was originally very busy, both his avatar and his real body were in a hurry, and he was unable to adapt for a while. Fortunately, the real body was faster and arrived at the dark territory. Huh? It seems that this dark area is much more chaotic than when I left. Somewhere in the dark territory, the metal crow's body slowly flew out from the edge of the dark territory and the ordinary star area, and then looked at the melee ahead, a little shocked. Although the dark territory is more chaotic than the genius war territory outside, Jia Yan understands after being in the dark territory for a long time that the dark territory also has its own rules. Generally speaking, the war will not be too big. But before him he saw a battle, with more than one warship on both sides. The entire starfield turned into a battlefield, and the scene was extremely grand. So that's it. It's the creatures of the Disciple Regiment fighting with several major coalition forces. Finally, Jia Yan saw clearly the signs of the warring parties. He smiled bitterly, but he didn't expect that the man-made black hole he detonated in the fugitive group would affect it for so long. Not wanting to have anything to do with the war here, he entered the subspace again. Even deliberately bypassing this war area, Jia Yan turned to Tingtian Pavilion not far away. The war happened not far away, but Tingtian Pavilion didn't seem to be affected much by the war at all. However, Tingtian Pavilion is slightly more lively than before. It's so scary. The remnants of the Desperate Regiment and the coalition forces of several major forces in the Dark Territory actually came to our border. The warship I was approaching was a little bit closer, and I was chased by a warship. Fortunately, I ran fast and escaped. Who says it isn't? The headquarters of our organization happened to be on the route of their battle. When dozens of Sig-1 class warships fought, we didn't dare to resist and ran away for our lives. It turns out that outside the Tingtian Pavilion planet, battleships that were either broken or newly arrived came here, like an army, surrounding the entire Tingtian Pavilion. The number was actually no less than a few hundred. But no matter how hard they fight, they don't dare to come to Tingtian Pavilion. That's right, I heard that a small coalition fleet didn't know it before, but it chased a group of defeated Disciple Regiment battleships here. As a result, a sub-level member of Tingtian Pavilion stepped forward alone. Just announced that this is Tingtian Pavilion, the group of pursuers actually ran away quickly. Haha, Tingtian Pavilion is still powerful. So we have to come over quickly and hug our thighs. Tingtian Pavilion is our life-saving straw at this time. Among the battleships in the sky, a monster slowly appeared here. Jia Yan heard the conversation between the monsters and was a little stunned. Oh, I didn't expect that Tingtian Pavilion would turn into a paradise. He shook his head. However, he doesn't want the other party to leave at this time. Will not disturb him after all. Flying slightly faster, Jia Yan entered the Tingtian Pavilion star body. Let me go, what happened to that guy just now? He actually dared to enter Tingtian Pavilion with such arrogance. If we want to enter, we need to establish a relationship in advance. He disrespects Tingtian Pavilion so much. What's wrong with you all? Boy, you are simply looking for death. That person just now was Mr. MOK from Tingtian Pavilion. If you want to die, don't drag us with you. Oh my god, he is Lord Mok who almost destroyed the disciple group by himself? Me. Jia Yan didn't even listen carefully to the chatter in the air and the startled sounds towards Jia Yan. Sir, you are back. When Jia Yan landed on the ground of Tingtian Pavilion, a familiar second-pass strongman came forward to greet him. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1013. No, the war outside has not affected us, but there are many more powerful people on the planet who have applied to move in. The fastest update. You can make up your own mind about the applicants. I'll take a rest. Also, you can send me some of the supplies I got recently. The requirements are still the same, high-energy substances. Jia Yantu, and then entered his stone house. Yes, the powerful monster from behind was overjoyed to accept the order. You must know that subordinates like them should not have much trust from the leaders of the forces, but now Jia Yan leaves things to him again and again. In his opinion, it is definitely a sign that Jia Yan trusts him. But what he didn't know was that Jia Yan couldn't even remember his name clearly. Tingtian Pavilion was just a place he built casually to grab supplies. Entering the stone house, Jia Yan first took out the smart brain communicator. He wanted to resolve the clone issue quickly, otherwise the increasingly weak strength of the clone at the Orion arm, where the situation was urgent, would not be enough. As soon as I dialed Z-Bala's communication number, the other party connected almost instantly. Master Jia Yan, long time no see. You actually called me through the communication. I'm so happy. The other party's thin head entered the communicator screen. Long time no see, Ziba. I have some questions to ask you now. Jia Yan showed a smile. Whatever the problem is, as long as it is asked by Mr. Jia Yan, I, Z-Bala, will definitely help you solve it. That's right, I have a clone. Jia Yan organized some conversation, and then slowly explained the matter about his clone. I see, my lord has a clone. The quantum linkage method of this clone is really interesting. I have never thought of it. After hearing Jia Yan's description, Z-Bala's eyes suddenly lit up. Well, don't you have a way to solve my problem? Jia Yan was startled, and then asked with some disappointment. Judging from Z-Bala's tone, it seemed that he had never been exposed to quantum linkage clones, so he thought the other party didn't understand. No, I understand. I'm just interested in their linkage method. But apart from this idea, Other parts of your avatar are relatively primitive. At least I can make it. Zibala shook his head and said words that made Jia Yan overjoyed. Then you think, how should I solve the clone problem? Jia Yan asked with a slightly happy expression. In this way, sir, I don't know where you got that clone, but what you need is the specific coordinates there, and then communicate with the other party. I will give them some data and let them improve to get what you want. Function. Presumably the creators of the clone are still helping you run the quantum linkage device of the clone. Otherwise, it would be impossible for you to remotely control the clone. So they can solve your problem as long as they make improvements according to my data. I see. Jia Yan was stunned. Zibala was indeed very powerful. She could think of the working principle of the clone just by listening to her simple description. This was already an extremely terrifying scientific ability for Jia Yan. If you need it, I can also construct it here. Your previous space ejection method also gave me some inspiration. Give me some time, and I can even make a similar ultra-fast catapult to launch you or something else catapults where you want it to go. It's just that the materials are hard to come by. Zibala's eyes brightened slightly. Although she understood the principles of what Jia Yan had told him before, the most important thing was creativity. In the genius battlefield, her creativity was not used at all. Now after listening to Jia Yan's after resigning, ideas came to me one by one. You can actually make something similar? Okay, if you need anything, I'll give it to you. It can be genius UN or anything else. If there are no raw materials, I will also find a way. Jia Yan listened to her words, was also shocked, and then overjoyed. You must know that he once calculated that he could withstand the power of his clone in the space capsule that day and flew to the solar system. If Zibala can really develop something similar, then he might be able to use it in some way. Under certain circumstances, it is not certain that this machine can be used to fly to the Orion arm. Of course, Zibala is only starting to take action now after all. It's not known how long it will take to really get it done, and it's not even certain whether it will succeed, so Jia Yan can't rush it. The catapult is not in a hurry, Ziba. Give me the modification information you want to give to the other party. I will find a way to contact them now, Jia Yan said clearly. Give me a day, I'll go sort it out now. Ziba nodded, and then closed the communication. By the time Zibala handed over the information to Jia Yan, it was already a day later. Is this what needs to be changed? A lot. Jia Yan looked at the information Zibala sent to Ji now, and it was a bit overwhelming. Fortunately, this kind of stuff was written in common language, and people in the Northern Star region could also roughly understand it. After thinking for a while, he thought of the land of Taya in the Northern Star region that he had not contacted for a long time, and the princess, no, she should be the emperor of Taya now. Thinking of them, Jia Yan's long-lost memories were brought back, and he let out a long sigh. I still have the ultra-long-distance communication method they gave me before. Let's take it out and use it. Unfortunately, I can't make calls and can only make simple contacts. Even because of the low power here, I can only use it. Sending information unilaterally. Jia Yan took out the ultra-long-distance communicator given to him by scientists in the Kingdom of Taya. Fortunately, this thing is not big, and Jia Yan did not put it on the Edissa, otherwise there would be no way to communicate with the Pacific Kingdom. After that, he got this series of information into a message, and then sent it with a glimmer of hope. Almost not long after, we were thousands of light years away from the genius battlefield. There is a star field here. In this star field, it is surrounded by large mysterious star clusters. There is a name for this place, called the Northern Star Territory. In the Northern Star Territory, there is a country that only relies on technology as its national productivity. The highest level of this technological country is none other than the first queen of the empire who has just ascended the throne a few years ago. Who has a great figure, has been at the top of a country for several years, and his demeanor has completely changed. Your Majesty, the technology our country just sold to the mercenary organization was sold to the Longtian tribe in the west at a high price by the mercenary organization. The profit was 100 times. The mercenary union is really bullying people. I suggest that we no more selling them any technology. A thin human-like creature was crouching at the bottom of the hall, speaking angrily to the supreme being of the country above. Alas, the woman at the top swept her long hair slightly. No, Artadia Kingdom has promised them too many unequal terms before protecting the giant Mosquito fleet, and there are also the Kudatan clan who keep coming. If we hadn't made concessions to the mercenary union and other forces and the country, how could they let these people come through? Forget it, this is all for our promise. Today, Kama seems to have regained the grace of his youth, and his every move is full of luxury. Promise. Your Majesty the Queen, do you think that the giant Mosquito clan will come back? What's the use of his coming back? There is now a star-level resident in the Northern Star Territory. Okay, no need, you don't have to worry about your Excellency's affairs. Anyway, just do as I do. Before the thin old man could say anything, Kama interrupted him with a slight frown. After the old man left, Kama sat helplessly on the royal chair. I can hardly suppress such remarks. Some of you are even dead. Your Excellency Jiayan, where are you? Are you dead or alive? I need to tell you the news. Kama thought of that and refused to give it. Jiayan, who heard the news, almost smiled helplessly. The powerful quantum communicator was given to him so that he could receive news frequently, but now it's good, there has been no news for several years. Just when Kama was thinking about Jiayan, he was surprised to find that a teleportation device he was carrying suddenly rang. She was startled. She didn't understand what kind of machine it was at first, but then she suddenly understood something and opened the machine to take a look. Ha, it turns out that this is the same adult I know. I haven't contacted him for so long, but when I contact him, it's because of something. Isn't he going to stop contacting me when nothing happens? Kama saw the communication and smiled bitterly. This guy is so bad. No matter what communication is sent from the other side, as long as there is news, it is enough at this time. Her Majesty the Queen, who had not really smiled for a long time, was actually smiling like a child alone in this deserted hall. Soon, the Queen of Tadia seemed to have changed into a different person, and she vigorously suppressed anyone who dared to speak ill of the giant Mosquito clan leader. Then she personally went to Huo Liaoxing, the place where Jiayan, the giant Mosquito clan master, had stayed for a long time, and conducted an inspection. After vaguely meeting with several high-level scientists on the planet, he returned to the main star of Tadia Kingdom. No one knew that Her Excellency, the Great Queen, had secretly assigned a certain task to the senior officials of the K family on Huo Liao star. Jiayan, who was in the genius battlefield, didn't know all this. He thought that at such a long distance, even if the other party could receive the message, it would be a long time later. But what Jiayan doesn't understand is that the principle of quantum entanglement is that no matter how far the distance is, as long as the connection between the two parties is still there, the reaction speed will be extremely fast. Of course, distance is always a problem. It's only a few thousand light years, and it's not as long as quantum entanglement. So at a time when he thought it was impossible, Tadia country had already started taking action. Okay, things have been arranged. Whether it can be done or not depends on fate. What I want to do now is to improve the strength of the main body. After Jiayan had done all that, there was nothing else he could do. Next, he will carry out another big plan to improve his strength recently. This thing is also the most important item that makes him famous. Artificial black hole. Thanks to a book friend who gave a tip, thank you.